The morning Zola had barely risen, while Mama Zola was already behind the house, bent over a massive black basin. Her fingers had been deep in a cold water, purple and wrinkled from scrubbing for hours. The soapy water splashed on her wrapper, leaving moist patches on her thighs. Around her were piles of clothes, wrappers, shirts, mattress sheets, even underwear stacked like small hills. These had been no longer her garments, or her son's. It had become Ayana's, her daughter in regulation, her son's wife. However, that wasn't all, because Ayana had long passed again in Turna to deliver greater. And this time, it was something you would by no means consider. The door creaked. Ayana stepped tired slowly, tying her silky robe round her waist, as although she had all of the time inside the global. Her stomach changed into round and heavy with being pregnant. Her skin glowing, her face calm and proud. She held a small nylon bag in her hand. Without searching down, she tossed it at Mama Zola's FT. The nylon made a tender thud at the moist floor. Mama Zola paused, her arms frozen inside the bloodless water. She lifted her worn-tired eyes to study her daughter in regulation. "Mama," Ayana said, tossing a small nylon bag at her FT. "The ones are my underwears. Wash them nicely, please. I don't want them smelling like damp rags." Mama Zola decreased her head. "Yes, Ayana," she said softly. Her voice turned into small, nearly swallowed with the aid of the breeze. Ayana turned, stretching her hands lazily. "And don't waste detergent. After you end, sweep the entire residence. I don't need to see even one grain of sand." She walked lower back in her, without some other word. Her steps gradual and steady, like a queen returning to her throne. Mama Zola sighed deeply. She picked up the nylon bag and opened it. Inside had been Ayana's undies, delicate and colorful. Her lips trembled. However, she said not anything. She dipped her arms, returned into the bloodless water, and continued scrubbing. Each stroke harder than the ultimate, like she changed into scrubbing her own pain away. By the point she'd become finished, her arms felt like logs of wood, her lower back become bent, her knees stiff. She wrung the closing cloth, water dripping onto the ground, like tears falling from worn, tired eyes. She climbed the quick steps to the worn-tired line, and unfolded the clothes smartly one at a time. The wind stuck them, making them dance like prisoners worn out. There has been no time to rest. Beside the kitchen walls stood an old broom with bristles. Mama Zola picked it up, her arms vulnerable, and walked into the dwelling room. The dwelling room turned into white, its tiled ground shining faintly inside the sunlight. She started one-tired to sweep carefully, her strokes regular and gradual. Ayana sat on the couch, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the alternative maintaining her telephone. She scrolled lazily, her face calm, her lips curved in a faint smile. After a while, she raised her head and clicked her tongue. "Again, Mama, sweep it again," she ordered, her tone sharp and impatient. "You simply pushed the dust to the corners. I do not want to breathe it. You recognize I have asthma." Mama Zola's coronary heart sank. However, she stated nothing. She bent again and swept the complete floor a second time, slower and greater cautiously, despite the fact that there has been no dust left to brush. Whilst she completed, sweat dripped down her temples, sliding into her eyes. Her chest rose and fell like a drum inside the arms of a stressed drummer. Ayana stood, sniffing the air. "Ayan, finally," she stated, her nostril wrinkled, "but the sink is complete of dirty plates. You failed to think to wash them, or do you want me to bend over this belly and do it myself?" Mama Zola's voice trembled. I'll wash them." "Good," Ayana spoke back coldly, sitting backpedaled. "And after that, cook beans for me with fried plantain. The infant is hungry." Mama Zola turned toward the kitchen without a phrase. Her footsteps were slow and heavy, like a female taking walks below the weight of 100 stones. That was a typical day inside the existence of Mama Zola, Mom to Zuri, mother in regulation to Ayana, a female who as soon as ruled her domestic with an iron tongue, now taking commands like a housemaid. But why? You see, 3 months in advance, while Ayana first entered that house, as Zuri's new bride, absolutely everyone within the village were greatly surprised. Now, not because of her splendor, even though she became placing. However, because she turned into pregnant, and Mama Zola, who had driven away 3 former wives before. The primary turned into Nia, a shy faculty teacher, with a tender voice and type eyes. She came into the house like morning dew, gentle, quiet, eager to delight. However, 6 months succeeded, and there has been no signal of a child. One evening, as the moon sat excessive in the sky, Mama Zola's voice had roared like thunder. "You are using contraceptives. You do not want my son to have kids." Naya had fallen to her knees, tears strolling down her face like streams worn out heavy rain. "No, Mama. I swear I'd by no means do any such factor." But Mama Zola's heart changed into a closed door. Through the following marketplace day, Nia's things were packed and left by way of the gate. She walked away, her head bent, her shadow long and damaged. The second one became Bola, a town girl, tall and stylish, with the sharpness of a Lago spanker. She wore perfume that lingered like secrets and spoke with confidence that stuffed the room. For a while, Mama Zola attempted to love her. However, one night, Bola had returned domestic, pale and trembling. She sat on the threshold of the mattress, her arms on her flat stomach. "Mama," she whispered, I misplaced the child." Mama Zola's eyes had narrowed like the slit of a machete. "You lie. There was by no means a toddler." "No, Mama, please present your matters." Mama Zola did. The subsequent morning, Bola changed into gone, leaving behind only her fragrance and silence. The 0.33 turned into Adora, Candy Adora. Her laughter became tender like a flute, and her palms had been brief like a needle in the wind. She cherished Zuri deeply and thought endurance might win Mama Zola's heart. However, 10 moons handed, nonetheless no baby. One night, Adora cried inside the corner of her room, conserving a tiny piece of cloth she had sewn for the baby she prayed for. She had suffered a miscarriage in secret. Her frame damaged, her spirit crashed. When Mama Zola heard, she spat on the ground. "Excuses. My son is not a check animal. Present your load and leave," she ordered. Adora left before dawn, her tears wetting the worn-out as she walked away. Now Ayana stood in the equal house, in which 3 girls had been thrown worn out like old mats, and Mama Zola, the equal woman who had roared like Hoth earlier then, became quiet. She did now not protest. She did now not start it. She did no longer even query why Ayana's stomach became already full before the wedding. Whispers commenced to swirl through the village just like the wind. At the well, women bent low to fill their buckets and whispered in the back of their palms. "Maybe she gave Zuri a love potion," one said, her eyes darting. "Or maybe this one is virtually the selected one," another replied, nodding slowly. However, only Ayana knew the truth, and he or she saved it buried underneath her calm eyes and quiet smile. The nighttime was quiet, too quiet. The moon hung high like a fated eye within the sky, watching over the drowsing village. Within the house, all and sundry had gone to mattress. The handiest sound became the faint cry of a nightbird and the whisper of the wind in opposition to the windows. Mama Zola could not sleep. Her thoughts became stressed, tossing and turning like clothes in a wash basin. She rose from her mat, tied her wrapper firmly, and went to the kitchen to warm a few water for tea. Her arms have been worn out tired, her body heavy. However, her coronary heart felt heavier. As she walked lower back closer to her room, wearing a small flask, she heard a gentle voice coming from the worn tired. It changed into Ayana. She was speaking in low tones, but the phrases floated through the still air like smoke. "I don't care," Ayana whispered sharply. "He believes the child is his. As soon as the child is born and the desire is examined, I am finished." Mama Zola iced up wherein she stood, her frame stiff like a carved statue. Her ears strained to seize every phrase. Her breath caught in her throat. There was silence for a second. Then Ayana spoke once more, her voice cold, sharp, and sour. "That vintage girl will scrub this house until her knees bleed. She destroyed others, especially Adora. Now she will pay." The flask slipped from Mama Zola's trembling arms and crashed to the ground with a noisy clatter. Hot water spilled worn out the tiles, steaming like indignant spirits growing. Ayana spun round speedy, her eyes flashing inside the dim moonlight. "Mama," she said, her voice unexpectedly calm, but dangerous. "Have been you listening?" Mama Zola's fingers flew to her Mai Tai red, her chest pounding like a drum, her knees weakened. And she or he stumbled backward, tears already rushing down her wrinkled cheeks. Her lips shook as she whispered, "The toddler. The toddler isn't always Zuri's." Ayana's face slowly curved into a cold, mocking smile. She took one step forward, her shadow stretching worn out the floor like a snake. "Did Adora's reality depend whilst you threw her tired?" she asked, her voice dripping with venom. Mama Zola's coronary heart broke. The room spun around her. The words stabbed deep, like sharp knives, slicing vintage wounds wide open. Her tears fell faster now, her breath coming in short, painful gasps. The reality she had by no means imagined stood earlier than her, smiling. And in that second, Mama Zola realized she turned into not the master of her domestic chore was the prisoner.